Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Palencia Mobley. Palencia has served as the Deputy Director and Chief Engineer of the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department since 2016. In her role, she oversees all department operations, including engineering, capital construction, field services maintenance and repair, meter operations, fleet, and facilities. Palencia Mobley is also responsible for implementation of the department's Green Infrastructure Program and the City of Detroit's first post-construction stormwater ordinance. Palencia is an authority on water infrastructure and environmental engineering and has nearly 20 years of experience in planning. She has expertise in design and construction administration and management services for water and wastewater utilities across the country. She's passionate about green infrastructure for stormwater management and the use of Detroit's greatest asset, publicly owned land, to mitigate the impacts of climate change. And please be sure to check out her full biography because Palencia's got many more accomplishments than the few that I've named here. And with that, I will turn it over to Palencia.
Thank you, Chelsea. It is a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Well, here in my office, like many of you, of course, I am still working from home and will continue to be working from home, I'm sure, through 2021, most of us will be. So thank you for spending some time with me on a Friday afternoon when you probably could be checking emails or something else. And with that, I'll get started. So Detroit is unique in certain respects in that we never had any sort of ordinance that required us to manage stormwater. So stormwater runoff from parking lots and roofs and driveways, you know, just went into the combined sewer system. That obviously led to flooding and untreated CSO discharges to the Detroit and Rouge rivers. The lack of regulation obviously has had some expensive consequences for us. Since the late 80s, early 90s, we have invested $1.5 billion in wet weather treatment facilities. I like to say wet weather treatment because everyone doesn't know what a combined sewer overflow facility is. But if I say wet weather, you'll think about rain, you'll think about snow. I say treatment, that makes you think I'm doing something to it. It's not just sitting there. And so I like to use that term a lot. So this is a picture of the Port Authority in Detroit. You see General Motors headquarters, the Renaissance Center in the background. It looks great, right? Lovely, beautiful day in the Motor City. Well, I was searching for something on the internet and was trying to do a presentation for the mayor to kind of talk through, you know, the entire wet weather treatment program. And I landed on this. And if you have ever had the opportunity to see an untreated sewage discharge, well, consider yourself in luck today. See a little floatable coming out there. So I always show this video, and I definitely show it a lot to residents because they've never seen this. So imagine, you know, just walking downtown in the rain. We have a brand new river walk. You know, Detroit is an industrial city, much like Cleveland and Chicago, where the river really was used to transport goods and materials. So we're just now trying to connect the people with the river and beautify our waterfront. And you're just walking downtown and you see this. You don't really know what it is. You probably think it's an oil spill or something. But you know, Exxon Mobil or Amoco, not that I'm talking about either one of them, that they create an oil spill or anything. You know, they're nowhere in sight. This is not where the Marathon facility is in Detroit, you know. So when you see this, you don't know what it is. And it's a sharp contrast, right? You can clearly see, you know, the blue in the horizon of the river, but this murky, dark water kind of pushing out. And residents are usually miffed, right? They can't believe this is happening in their city. So in the city of Detroit, it's a really busy diagram, but it's just to show where we have all these different facilities. We have 9 wet weather treatment facilities throughout the city of Detroit and some of near-term suburbs. In the far left-hand corner, you will see a beautiful green area. That is a golf course. There's a CSO facility embedded in a golf course. Actually, it's a TPC golf course in our neighboring city of Dearborn. And I always tell people, infrastructure hides in plain sight. The little green dots on the map represent what we call in-system storage gates. The people who designed Detroit infrastructure and sewer system, I marvel at what they did. They were genius. We have very, very, very large collector sewers all throughout the city. I'm talking 10-foot, 14-foot diameter sewers. And Detroit is exceptionally flat. So those sewers behave as storage. And these green dots are in-system storage gates that are activated depending on what type of storm we have, and they're used to hold the flow to prevent untreated discharges from occurring. So I show this to folks a lot. This is a picture of what's now known as the Aretha Franklin Amphitheater. And I always ask them, what do they think the building is with the green roof? Do they think that's where all of the acts that perform at this amphitheater? I'm like, do you think that's the office or the backstage area? And they're all like, yeah, sure. Yeah, you know. And I said, actually, it's a wet weather treatment facility. So I like being able to connect people to the things that actually make their life better, right? This is a quality of life improvement that you don't know is there. You assume is a part of the amphitheater. And I'll be honest, before I did what I do, you know, I thought that's what it was too when I was a teenager. So Detroit is extremely unique. We've done all this investment in wet weather treatment, and we've been able to pretty much eliminate 95% to 98% of our untreated CSO discharges. But, you know, how do you get rid of the remaining 5% or so? Detroit's population, and this is from 2010, you know, we had 933,000 people over 139 square mile area. You can fit San Francisco, Boston, and Manhattan in Detroit, and you still would have 22 square miles left over, right? Or 20 square miles left over. And they have 2.8 million people. Well, we don't know what they're going to have post pandemic, because I have some new neighbors from California down the street that actually came from San Francisco. But, you know, these very large, you know, this very large city has land that's not being used. And so this map here shows a lot of the land in the city. You're looking at the green, and green probably means go for you, and that's occupied property, right? And red probably means stop, danger. You know, that's not occupied property. It's quite the opposite. I thought my animation was on here. I'm sorry. The areas in red are strong, dense, populated areas where pretty much every parcel is inhabited. The areas in green are areas of vacancy, of what we call high vacancy. So we've used a multifaceted approach here to kind of manage stormwater. We had a permit obligation to develop a post-construction stormwater ordinance. And so we started that process. We also already had a wet weather treatment program. And so we have a drainage charge in the city of Detroit, much like Seattle and Portland have, where we charge, and Philadelphia at this point, where we charge for stormwater runoff based on the amount of impervious acres on your property. And if I don't have any water nerds in the building, impervious acres are just the hard surfaces that if you pour, you know, water onto concrete, the concrete is not going to soak it up, it's going to run off. So that's what we mean by impervious surfaces. And then we have our green infrastructure program that's regulated by our permit. So when we put all those things together, we now have a systematic approach for reducing stormwater entering the combined sewer system in Detroit. So I'm gonna go through each of these little elements. So our green infrastructure program is a $50 million program that is primarily concentrated on the northwest side of Detroit. I'll say the west side of the city, formerly known as the Upper Rouge tributary. In 2008, the city of Detroit was supposed to put in $1 billion, storage tunnel. We'd already committed to $1 billion and some change of other improvements. And it was determined that, it was just not financially feasible for us to do this. So in negotiating with the regulators, we were able to say, well, you know what, we have land. Why don't you allow us to try to manage stormwater before it ever hits the combined sewer system? And that is where the green infrastructure program was born. We have an interdepartmental working group in the city of Detroit that includes our planning department, our parks department, our Department of Public Works, in which we all talk about the projects that are going on and what elements of stormwater management can be incorporated in those projects. We have a high level of community outreach. As a native Detroiter, I can say unequivocally, without a doubt, the amount of engagement that happens from not just the water department, but the city at large now is more than I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm very honest about when I bought my house almost 20 years ago. I remember getting a letter in the mail saying my water main was being changed, but that was it. There was no conversation about it. I didn't really know what day they were coming. I remember being a little upset because I couldn't get in my driveway. But now we give you much more information. We host informationals, and even, post-COVID or pre-COVID, we would actually go and have meetings with the Block Club right outside and talk them through what the projects were going to be. Our other goal is to try to reduce basement backups and street flooding. I never want to say green infrastructure is going to eliminate anything. We want to manage water where it falls. It doesn't mean that it's not going to get into the system at some point. The other key piece for Detroit is being able to enhance the quality of life in neighborhoods for our residents. And we started the program with these vacant lot projects. So we have a land bank. Many cities have a land bank or a land trust or something of that nature. And under our land bank, all the vacant parcels in the city were in the land bank, almost 100,000 parcels. And so we began to try to figure out where we could install green infrastructure. The University of Michigan students began looking at these concepts, and they presented us with these concepts. And a partnership between the University of Michigan, DWSD, some of the foundations yielded a real life green infrastructure project. So we put in 4 of these. These were our first stormwater management projects. They managed close to 1 million gallons of stormwater annually. They cost a lot of money. They ended up costing around $800,000 for a variety of reasons. They're situated on 2 vacant lots. We went back and retrofitted them. 2 of them that aren't on main thoroughfares now have trench drains that connect the flow from across the street into the parcels. So we had to try some stuff. We also tried porous asphalt. Just so you know, I'm redoing this now, okay? We tried it, didn't work out. We gotta try something else. And so to the left is the porous asphalt. And we put it in the parking lane. And I knew after going out to the site a couple times, this probably was not gonna have the longevity that we thought it would have. And so we're gonna pull that up and now install what you see on the right, and that's porous pavers. This is the paved drain system. Some of you may be familiar with it, but it works exceptionally well. The only thing is, when the neighbors cut their grass, the grass clippings kind of end up in the interstitial spaces between the pavers. And the very top picture is what the intersection looked like before we put the paved drain system in. This intersection in Detroit, I think it's Keeler and Piedmont on our northwest side, flooded and looked just like this. So On the far right in the top of the picture, you see an ambulance trying to make it through basically water that's curb to curb. And so once this was installed, the way the stormwater was managed was phenomenal. This is probably one of my favorite projects, and I won't get too political right here. And Chelsea, you'll have to let me know when I'm going over because I don't really time myself. This was a park. Now, you see it looks like a big grassy field, but this was a park. It had no play equipment, and it was named after Viola Liuzzo. And she lost her life in 1965 when she marched on Selma to help register Black voters in Selma, Alabama. And she was killed by the Ku Klux Klan. And so the neighbors for some time wanted to honor her and didn't, really know how they were going to be able to do that. So in a partnership with the UAW, the city's parks department, they fundraised. And this is what we have now. We have a walking trail in the park. We have picnic tables. We have, I'm going to mess up the name of it, but the pickleball courts. And this park is not far from my house. And I mean, it's literally 5 minutes up the street. We put in 3 bioretention areas in the park. We invested about $400,000. Actually, it was a little bit more than that, about $500,000 in the bioretention we put in this park. We also put trench drains so that we could do all of the flow on the surrounding streets. And it really, for me, represents everything that she fought for and what she lost her life for. I drove by on a random day and I saw 2 older gentlemen, 1 Black gentleman, 1 white gentleman walking, doing their little exercise. And they were probably in their 80s, right? And this park is so significant to me because it has brought the neighbors together. The city was able to make sure blighted structures were torn down. And there was I usually play a video about this park and I didn't put it in this presentation. But when the city was going through bankruptcy, one of the neighbors, his name is Artist Johnson. Mr. Johnson has to be knocking on 85 years old. He was cutting the grass at the park himself. And he was one of the main folks who worked to get the park restored and to put it in the condition it is today. So we have a few projects that we're looking at in the future. So we've done all these little things, right? And we spent about $17 million getting some of the smaller projects in. A couple projects that I didn't mention, one of our largest ones to date, which is under construction right now, is in a neighborhood in the southern portion of the city, and we call it the Oakman Boulevard project. It's our most expensive to date, and it's around $9 million. We're redoing medians and managing stormwater for over 60 acres. But we also have begun to identify areas where we can do sewer separation. So what you see in the little inset map, you see all these different multicolored areas. These are areas that are coming to the top of the analysis as places where we can manage stormwater differently, do some sewer separation, some green infrastructure, and potentially avoid another tunnel. There's a tunnel on there because it has to be, because these are the conversations, right, that you have already had with your regulators about what you think needs to go there. But we're going to work really, really hard not to have to put another tunnel in. And we have about a $40 million. In the very, very bottom, you see an area that's very pink. That area that you see at the very bottom that's pink, we are currently working on the design for a large sewer separation green infrastructure project that covers more than a 200-acre neighborhood. So our drainage charge program. I won't belabor this because we're under litigation. We're currently, it's at the state Supreme Court, and we're waiting to know the results. They actually had oral arguments a couple weeks ago. But our drainage charge is just based on the amount of imperviousness on a property. So in the first example, you see a house. That house is going to be charged for its rooftop, its driveway, its sidewalk. And for residential properties, there is a credit built into the rate structure under the premise that their downspouts are disconnected because that's state law. So we built in a credit for them. Example B is just a business. So rooftop, their parking lot, hey, we're going to charge them for it. And then example C is like, I don't know, I can't remember if Chicago has quite as many parking lots as the city of Detroit surface lots, but example C is a parking lot. And so we're only charging them for the perviousness or the imperviousness on their specific parcel. It's been an interesting run because we had to go through a complete conversion of the previous rate structure. We had to tell the parking lots, hey, excuse me, I know you've never seen a water bill, but you know, when it rains, your parking lot isn't a pond. It's not a lake, it's a parking lot. And you're actually able to still use it. So you are receiving a service from the City of Detroit Water and Sewage Department. We phased in the rate for those who had not previously been charged, while we started bringing the rate down for those who had been charged on the impervious acre basis. So in doing this, we had to develop a credit system because we also want people to retrofit their properties and manage stormwater on site. We believe the more water we can have managed where it falls, that will reduce the overall burden on the system during wet weather, but it will also allow us to potentially reduce future investments in the combined sewer overflow program. Those of you who are practitioners know to get to that last 5%, the return on investment is not there. It's very cost prohibitive to try to do that remaining 5% with some of the gray controls. So GM Poletown, which now, you know, this was the plant that they said they were closing. They are now completely retrofitting the plant to build, I believe it's the electric Hummer that's coming out. And so now my little favorite project that one of my, businesses did is no longer my favorite project because it may not exist like this in the future. It might be slightly different, but they were able to recoup their investment in a year and some change. GM figured out how to manage their entire 365 acre site. They were paying us about $180,000 a month, give or take. $200,000 a month was their bill for drainage. And so they put in 3 stormwater retention ponds. They're managing 220 million gallons of water a year, but they were able to reuse some of that water for their powerhouse operations. And so on the sad end, they saved us 20% their potable water usage, so they weren't buying as much water from us. And likewise, they reduced their drainage charge. So, it's the gift and the curse. It's the gift that keeps on giving in some respects, because the long-term ROI is what you hope to see in terms of reducing future investments. We also developed best practice guides. We wanted to have our customers to have all the information they needed to try to make the best decision for their particular property. And so we allow a variety of different type of things, from bioretention to cisterns to subsurface storage to permeable pavements to reduce your drainage charge. We do a lot of customer service. When we rolled this program out, we had to do a lot of what were called impervious area adjustments. The technology might have picked up a pool, and we decided that pools weren't going to be included in imperviousness because they're obviously paying a charge for us when they fill their pool up on the potable side, and they pay, a sewer charge associated with that. We do site visits and we inspect properties, do community meetings. Just the whole gamut is what we've been doing to outreach to our customers. And of course, we needed help. I will be very honest, when I started in my role, there was me doing all of this plus my role. Now I have a team of about 8 people plus some consultants who manage our entire stormwater program. So for our industrial and commercial customers, or like we like to say now, residential customers, we create a site assessment process so that they could understand what they could potentially do on their property, and we give them a low, medium, and high intervention and they make some decisions about whether or not they want to install green infrastructure and receive a credit on their bill. We validate all of their data, we go out, we talk to them, and then we develop a report. As part of the program, we've completed over 205 site assessments. Almost half of those have been for our faith-based and industrial customers, and half of those have been commercial customers. And each property is different. Those of you who do green infrastructure know it's site specific. You know, on the west side of Detroit, we found that we have really good soil. It's not all clay. And we have some sand seams that may allow for some natural infiltration, as long as it wasn't a gas station or some other thing prior to the current use. And so this has been very helpful for our customers. And we spent about $1 million. We've been able to reduce, they've been able to reduce their drainage fees by about $2 million to customers who have participated and decided to implement some form of stormwater management. We also implemented a capital partnership program. We are in the process of revamping this. This is on hold right now with the pandemic and changes to revenues. But the initial thought was, if we put something on it, then they can put something on it, up to $50,000, right? So if a project was $100,000, you could be awarded up to $50,000 to install your project. This has not been the most successful because a lot of the customers don't have the upfront capital. So we've been looking at ways in which maybe we will have a quality-based selection in which we pick projects and then we fund the project from design through construction. But that's still a conversation piece. It's not set in stone, but it's what many of our contemporaries are doing, including, I think, Philadelphia and New York. Everyone ended up and those are places where you have a much stronger economic base than you have in the city of Detroit. To do development deals in Detroit, you need several stacks of financing, capital financing, to make it work. And here's the thing, the skyscraper pretty much costs the same in Detroit to build as it does in Chicago or New York. But the financing mechanism from the private market is just not there. We don't have the solidness and the liquidity in our private financial markets to support it. So through this particular program, we've awarded 23 applicants with green infrastructure capital partnership program dollars. I think it's actually 25 now, because this is from March. I didn't update my presentation. I'm being honest. And we've approved about 1.2, actually I think it's about 1.3 and some change million dollars for projects. Now to the thing that took a lot of time out of my life because there was no team, our post-construction stormwater ordinance. Very simple. Any new or redevelopment project, and pretty much every site in Detroit is going to be redeveloped because it has had something on it previously, that creates or replaces a ½ acre or more of impervious surface is determined as a regulated construction activity. That means it's subject to the post-construction stormwater ordinance. As part of being subject to the post-construction stormwater ordinance, you must have some form of detention and retention, and it depends on your site and how large your site is. What we have found is we needed to do some tweaks. We already had alternative compliance in our ordinance, but it was a little challenging for us to offer alternative compliance to various customers. So for alternative compliance, you have to have extraordinarily difficult site conditions. So obviously in any industrial city, you will have places where water cannot be infiltrated. The cost to actually remediate and remove soils and bring in new soils is cost prohibitive in a lot of cases. So we give two options for alternative compliance, what we call off-site mitigation, where they're allowed to construct something elsewhere in land on the city with equivalent or greater impervious surface that it will manage the stormwater practice. And this is ideal because you may have a church or some other large commercial customer that really would like to reduce their drainage charge, but they're not able to because they don't have the funding to do a project. So this allows that to happen. And then they can pay us a fee in lieu. And the fee in lieu is kind of expensive. I believe it's around $8 a gallon. So whatever your site is technically supposed to manage by the ordinance, if you don't do that, you have to pay us fee in lieu. And then you also pay us a drainage charge when you go live. As everyone knows, partnerships are what make green infrastructure work. It does not work unless everybody is at the table. And so we've been very fortunate in Detroit. I remember when I was working kind of liaising between the mayor's office and the department because we had a divorce. Many of you know the city of Detroit went through bankruptcy, and as part of that bankruptcy, a new regional entity was formed called the Great Lakes Water Authority. So basically, they lease the city of Detroit's water and wastewater treatment plant and operate them on behalf of the city and the region. And the city of Detroit receives $50 million, DWSD does, to implement our capital improvement program. So I remember being in a meeting with the person at the time who was running the program. And, we were waiting on Maurice Cox, actually, who's now the planning director of Chicago. And I said, well, wouldn't it be nice if there was just one place where someone could go and see all of the projects that people are doing to manage stormwater? And the person who was managing the program at the time said, the city's never going to have a website for that. They're never going to invest in that. Well, I'd like to present to you the Detroit Stormwater Hub. We did invest in it. We do have a process by which people can upload their projects and we review them and post them, right? Make sure the information is correct. It involves a lot of coordination between our public affairs department and the engineering team and inspectors. It's led by our stormwater management group, because now there's a group, there's no longer just Palencia. And it has been a hallmark in us really being able to showcase all the work the community has done to manage stormwater, as well as some of our private partners. The number is probably more than 97 now. I think it was up to 100 and some change the last time I looked at it. But this for me just felt like a woosah moment, a culmination of so many different people's efforts collectively placed for everyone to see. And it was a lot of people. The Herb Family Foundation has been a hallmark and a steward for us, and just a strong partner when it comes to implementing these programs. The Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, which is the city's quasi-public development arm, the Nature Conservancy, the Greening of Detroit, they do a lot of tree planting, as well as they have a program for workforce development for green infrastructure. Detroit Future City, which is a policy think tank. They actually have a really good report out on home ownership versus renting in the city of Detroit and what has happened with home ownership in the city over the years. Keep Growing Detroit, where you can sign up and get some planter vegetables. And if anybody is like me, this was the first year you had your own food garden, and you were able to harvest your own vegetables in the pandemic. And then we have DCDC, which is the Detroit Collaborative Design Center. We have a couple of other projects going on where there's a stormwater management network being led by TNC, and that's in the city's Eastern Market. Eastern Market is our food distribution hub in the city of Detroit. And I think it's one of the oldest, or is the oldest, public market, outdoor market in the country. And then other conservancies we engage with are the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy, which constructed the beautiful Riverwalk, and then Friends of the Rouge on the west side of the city. And so I'm going to end with one of my favorite videos that we've done. And not just because I'm in it. That's not why it's my favorite. It's my favorite video because it really speaks to the nature of who we are as Detroiters. It speaks to our ability to collaborate and work together on things that sometimes, are difficult. It also showcases an area of the city that many people don't know exists. So you're going to see this area, you're going to see these canals and these houses backing up to these canals. Yes, that is not Grosse Pointe. That is the city of Detroit. Grosse Pointe is one of our very affluent neighbors on the east side of Michigan, or into the very east of the city. But this, for me, really surmises who we are as Detroiters, what we care about, and that we really do live here by the motto that I am my brother's keeper. and that we endeavor to work together to make a stronger Detroit, to make a better Detroit for the future generations to come. And I think, could you all hear the sound fine when I shared screen before? No, I got to fix something because I didn't think you could.
If there was supposed to be sound in the first video, I definitely did not hear sound.
Okay, so we got to do one thing under screen share, which is the sound. And more share computer sound. Okay, this should do it. And Chelsea, give me a thumbs up if you can hear the sound.
Surrounded by 20% of the world's surface freshwater, inhabiting 139 square miles of land, Detroit has an unprecedented amount of open urban space, and it is our duty to protect these precious resources. An urban leader in CSOs for more than 20 years, we've been investing over $1.5 billion in wet weather management, and now we're working to become the front runner in green stormwater infrastructure. Every day, residents, city leaders, nonprofits, and the business community are innovating solutions to prevent untreated sewage discharge. We are applying our Motor City grid to create a sustainable and healthy city through green stormwater infrastructure. With community and collaboration, we're managing thousands of acres of land and billions of gallons of stormwater. We're bringing together neighbors, improving water quality, and making Detroit more beautiful. Our city, known for the automobile, is on the road to becoming the greenest city in America. Welcome to Detroit.
And with that, if I have any questions, I will take them.